Welcome to Deep Dive Film School. I'm Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palcher.
If you like what you see / hear, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people find good media.
That's right. Our most popular platforms are YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And wherever you guys listen to podcasts, we do that as well. So join us there.
Yep.
All right. Let's get into an epic, wonderful scene.
Yes.
From True Romance. You know, we battled about what scene we should do.
It was this or the eggplant scene.
Yeah, the eggplant. You got Hopper and Walken at the same time. That's a really good one. And
It's a really good
probably
one.
do a second edition of this and do that scene at some point.
We make our own rules. I think that's
true,
okay.
Yeah. We're playing in our courtyard.
But this is the Drexel Spivey scene.
Has to be.
This is 1993.
You got it.
You know,
Written by Tarantino.
Yep.
Directed by Tony Scott.
This is what I was going to say. Right out of the gates.
This movie's very Tarantino.
This is some, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter and the chocolate. Like you have a combo for the ages. So you have 90s Christian Slater in his gold Elvis sunglasses. Mm-hmm. You've got 90s rave music in the soundtrack, dialogue, grindhouse references, and characters created by an as of yet mostly unknown Quentin Tarantino. Reservoir Dogs came out the year before, but otherwise nobody really knows about this guy. And then you have the beautiful smoke-filled yet somehow still shiny direction by Mr. Tony Scott.
Yeah, great combination.
It's got all of those things going for it.
And probably the original Manic Pixie Dream Girl, right? Like,
Alabama?
Love Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, I mean, I was talking about just this scene.
Hooker.
I was like, if we want to go outside of this scene, we could just keep going and going and going. Like,
he is not in this scene.
But she's mentioned a lot. I mean, she's the reason why Clarence is there.
Yeah, so before this Drexel confrontation with Christian Slater, the context of kind of the scene within the movie here is, you know, they're getting tattoos after their newfound love.
Yep.
And he asks, what's a Drexel? And she explains and just immediately has something wrong. He immediately doesn't like this guy.
Because it's like, he's
protective now. He has something to protect.
They've fallen in love on first sight, and they decided that they're going to do whatever they can to stay together.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting in revisiting the scene. Obviously, in a second, we will get to Mr. Gary Oldman acting the sides off of this movie. But before that, I do think it's interesting just from contextual to say that up to this point in the movie, the character of Clarence, we don't know a ton about other than
comic book store, right?
He works at a comic book store. He's a loner.
Upstairs.
He's kind of a dork. He always watches the kung fu flicks.
That's right.
And he's really lonely, right? That's about it. There's not a lot more we know about him, and that he's enough of a loser that his boss bought him a hooker for his birthday, right?
Yeah.
And so when he enters into this scene, I was trying to put myself back in that spot again, not knowing all the other things that were going to happen in this movie. And I was like, this scene is actually super, super important.
Absolutely.
Because we're like, oh my God, is Clarence going to get himself killed here, right? Because there's just not a lot of context for him being a tough guy at all.
Yes, and the only context that we have of Drexel so far, we do get a scene with him and Sam Jackson earlier in the movie.
Yes, we do.
That has an amazing line. I ate the pussy, I ate the body,
I ate the whole damn thing.
But essentially Drexel's crew steals a suitcase of drugs from that scene and from him. But that's kind of what the drugs that they find in this scene are what propels the whole rest of the plot of the movie.
And those guys kill the other group of guys in that earlier scene, which again sets up Drexel as being a real threat. Here's what I think is so fascinating. Somehow Tony Scott and Gary Oldman pulled off this really unique thing where Drexel gets to be both a huge threat early on in this movie and a total wannabe at the same time. Right? He's corny as hell, yet really scary. Both things are true.
Scenes in this movie.
Yeah. But both things are true, right? You're like, he's a white dude that wishes he was a black dude, right? And he's kind of a cornball because he thinks he's tough, but he's not. But
he's got the dreads, he's got the scar, he's got that vacant eye.
And I don't know if I did looking into some trivia online regarding this stuff. It's great that in the very beginning, Tony Scott basically asked him if he wanted to be a part of it, and he hadn't had a chance to read the script yet. And he's like, well, what's the part? And he goes, well, it's not a huge part, but you're playing a white guy who thinks he's he's a black guy and you're a killer pimp. And Oldman was like, yep, I want to do it.
Yeah, I don't
like
need to read anything.
And then apparently he kept asking Tony Scott, like, well, what's he like blah, blah, blah. And he was like, just read the part and come up, give me some ideas. And so like, he was like, oh, he's been in a knife fight. And so he has a huge scar. And then he would like call Tony Scott and be like, he's got a huge scar across his face. He has fake teeth. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And he's like, one of his eyes, he's blind in one of his eyes. He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. He's like, and he has dreadlocks. And so Tony Scott, when he showed up on set, was the first time that he saw him. And he goes, yeah, that's what Drexel looks like. Oh, and I love this. The white eye that he's wearing, around where he got the stab wound, is actually one of the contacts from the Bram Stoker's Dracula, because he was making it at the same time. Oh, no. So he was just like, no, I
already got it.
Can I borrow one of these? I've got another shot today on the Tony Scott film.
Gary Oldman is fucking perfect.
He's amazing.
This is true acting.
Oh,
it really is. With all those things you're talking about, it's just perfect. Like you said, he's wonderful. He's immediately a threatening villain, and a cornball at the same time. Somehow he gets to be both.
Yeah, it ain't white boy day, is it? And you're like, you fucking doofus.
Yeah,
like,
and just the way that practically makes us related. Like, I'm here for Alabama, just all these little things, and I'm still a mystery to you.
Yeah,
he's got all of those lines, and he invites him to try an egg roll. And
yeah,
like, but there's the Mac's been playing in A Big Pair of Titties has been on the screen.
Oh, dude, all that stuff, and now we know what Tarantino dialogue is like.
Yeah,
right?
No, again, Tarantino's all over this.
We know that now, but at the time, I remembered seeing this right when it came out, and it felt magical.
Yeah,
I was like, how do you write that? That whole thing of like, now, if you would have come and sat down and just had an egg roll, I would have been like, this guy's got nothing to worry about.
Charlie Bronson.
Yeah, fucking motherfucking Charlie Bronson. But just the playfulness of all that dialogue, and then the rave music amping and amping and amping, and it's so scary. At this point, we don't know, like, is Clarence immediately going to get himself like held hostage, or like, I remember having a real sense of dread even that early on in the movie,
Yeah, absolutely. I think an underrated part is just how Tarantino's dialogue mixed with how Scott shot this.
Yep.
The action here is very underrated, I thought.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm thinking of like the scene, not only with these like low angles or even through the peephole, like you immediately see him in his Elvis glasses, and
so good.
Like all these, the angles from underneath that make him seem more threatening, and he absolutely is. He's sitting there with his gut out.
Yeah.
Slugging him, looking through his wallet, and being smart. Like, he's like the Joker smart, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And so like he is the smartest guy in the room until he gets distracted, I guess.
Well,
but I was kind of fascinated with how it was shot. I'm thinking of the shot where he gets thrown against the wall of aquariums.
Oh God, yeah.
And like, obviously there's stunt guys and stuff in here, but like the mixture of all that with the clever, funny writing, and just like the defined characters. Everyone knows exactly who the fuck they are in this movie.
Totally. Well, and I think that, like, to your point, those shots ramp up the tension in this way. The playing with that prop of the lamp.
Oh yeah,
with the dusty like lampshade on it, and he keeps using it to blind him, and it's so. And
I know I'm pretty.
Yeah, and it's blinding us too. Every time he pops it up,
great use of light.
It's so. And he keeps swinging it back and forth, and just the smacking of the Chinese food, and like it's so. I feel like it's so iconic. It's just drilled into my brain at this point.
And it's funny, like, in that first scene with Sam Jackson, they just ordered Chinese food, so that must have like just happened.
Yeah, that's the food they got
that night. So, yeah, like it's literally like
that's the food.
Leftovers. I don't know, but there's some memorable lines, and I got like Oldman steals this. I mean, he's one of the generation's greatest chameleons.
Oh God,
yes. Seen. Like, if you look at half of his stuff, you're just like, oh, that's him. Oh my God, I didn't know that was him. Christian Slater here is fucking awesome.
He's so good.
Like, he's awesome through this whole movie.
Yeah,
he's Clarence through and through. He's like a cooler Clarence, like a Tarantino Clarence, right? Like,
yeah,
because Tarantino writes dialogue that no one really talks like that, right?
Yeah.
But it's cool to hear people talk like that, especially in movies when you're, watching their story unveil.
Yeah, it's like Seinfeld. It's like that's how you wish you and your friends, or in your head, that's how you think you and your friends talk.
Kevin Smith is another example of dialogue that's like that, right? And so he came from that era of all those guys too. So, but first off, he shoots Drexel in the dick, which is like the most perfect way to denigrate that guy.
Yeah.
If you want to castrate him and strip away his manliness and everything that he has. But then he goes further.
Oh my God, yes.
When he screams, "Open your fucking eyes."
Open your eyes. Yeah. It gives me chills.
It gives you chills.
It's
and
so
like
good.
You fucking believe him. And he goes for it. And you're just like you said,
funny.
we don't know.
Yeah.
If he has the balls to do it, he could shoot him in the dick and maybe he won't die.
Yeah, and run away or whatever.
And they're chasing the whole movie.
The fact that he announces, "I just did you girls the greatest favor of your fucking life," like it is so interesting.
Put Alabama's things in there.
Yeah, everything shifts, right? Because he is, and I think it's really interesting. The way you talked about it, of like he's in this like silk robe with his silk boxers, and like, and they totally get the upper hand on Clarence. They beat the shit out of him. And it's only in that last moment that he's distracted. And you don't know, like, to your point, like, you don't know, even if you know, like, he's brought the gun and like
he's fighting back.
He thought he was clever because he has the empty envelope and all that stuff. He's been watching movies, but the fact that in that moment you realize like, oh, he was being 100% serious when he told Alabama, like, I will do whatever you want to do. Right. And I think in that moment, it does propel the rest of the movie of knowing like, oh, he's going to leave his job at the comic book shop. He's going to leave his apartment behind. They're going to go on the run. Like everything's going to change. And it's in that moment when he rolls over and he has the pistol in his hand and he shoots. And in that moment, you're like, oh my God. Because again, at that point, Drexel is an established character. You don't know he's going to die that quick. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that he's like, open your eyes. And then it's in that moment that I went, oh, right. Tarantino also directed, also wrote Natural Born Killers.
Yes, he did.
Right. And so not that Tarantino has mellowed with age, but I think he's gotten more sophisticated of not needing to go for the jugular.
I got to say, it's fun watching other people direct his stuff, though.
Because it does make you see that like, oh, we don't need cleverness here. We can have just like, and don't get me wrong. I mean, some of the most brutal shit I've ever seen was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at the end of that movie. But still, it's like the open your eyes. You think that's pretty fucking funny. Well, fuck you. Like it is so on the nose. Like, yeah, that is Charlie Bronson. 100%.
This was a very important movie that I rewatched a lot.
So many times.
When it came out and I hadn't watched it in a long time, and man, I forgot how much I love this movie. We're not even we're just talking about one scene.
Yeah.
He goes to hang out with Brad Pitt and Michael Rappaport in Hollywood.
God, he's
talking. Feeney's there.
He's talking to Val Kilmer Elvis.
That's right.
It's such a good fucking movie.
Genius movie, especially for the time.
Yeah.
Right? For that.
Just such a big
early
ensemble.
90s.
Yeah. And it just feels electric. It feels unlike anything.
At least for me, like a defining 90s movie.
And I remember watching it a bunch, and it was before Pulp Fiction came out.
Yeah.
So it was like I was like quoting lines from this. I was insufferable as a teenager, as I'm sure you can imagine.
We're doing it now. What are you talking about? Anyways, what an amazing scene. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes.
Great movie. Please like and subscribe, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Go there and check us out if you like what you hear. Next week, we're going to start our Movies About Movies Festival with The Fabelmans. I can't wait. Steven Spielberg's directed movie that came out in 2003.
Love letter to movies and his family.
Yeah.
So that's next week.
Yeah. So check that out. And then we're going to continue on. I believe our next scene is the opening montage of the Royal Tenenbaums. So check it out and we will see you then.
Bye, you guys.